I want to call to order the June 2nd, 2014 meeting of East Ascension Drainage District. Madam Secretary, please note that everyone is here except Councilman Brian Melanson. Would everyone please stand for the invocation given by CAO Ken Dawson, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Father, as we come tonight, we give you thanks and praise for all the blessings you bestowed upon us, and for the protection that you've given us, oh God, from all the inclement weather that has happened over the recent days. Father, we pray for your wisdom and guidance, oh God, to help those, oh God, that in need. And even, Father, we ask that you look upon the family, oh God, that had a loss during this time. Now, Father, as we come tonight, we thank you for your wisdom, which you give to every man freely, for the help of the people of this great parish, oh God, in accomplishing, oh God, the things that are needed. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary, please note that Councilman Melanson is here, so we're all present. We'll move on to agenda item number 3. Just to announce public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak, please sign in with the secretary, and you'll be given time to speak when that agenda item comes up. The chair would entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the May meeting, 2014 meeting.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Mr. Terry Cazzo. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes. I'm going to give my chairman's report to Mr. Rick Weber with OEP. Later in, I'll give you my time for when you come in a little bit later. Right now, I'd like to move straight on to drainage report. Mr. Rue.
Yes, sir. I want to go to item 6A first to get that over with. And that's a notification to the board that President Martinez and I and Mr. Ken Dawson met with the Corps of Engineers several weeks ago, discussed our projects, specifically on how we can obtain permits for the projects a lot more efficiently. There's a program in the Corps called the Section 214 for the Water Act, and what it does is it enables local agencies to fund environmental review from an outside contractor, pay for their services. They will actually work for the Corps, but they only handle our project, and it's supposedly we can get it through the Corps in maybe the third time of having actually the Corps review it. And this is a formal request to the Corps of Engineers to include us in that 214 program, and they have it, and we're waiting for word back from them to tell us where we stand on it, and possibly we can get this activated, pay our fee, and get our permitting reviewed by an outside agency. The first two project will be Law Rich Levee extension permit process, and then several other projects as needed after that.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Mr. Dempsey Lambert, second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes. Move on to B, major drainage project update.
Yes, sir. What I want to do is include B and C. This was done before the event of the rain event of last week. We want to go ahead and include B and C into our report of that rain event and some possible projects that can be initiated to lessen the severity of it. First, I want to call up Mr. Rick Weber with the OEP and have him go over some statistics of the rain event to include elevations, severity of the rainfall, and flooded homes, flooded roads, and such as that. Mr. Weber.
Thank you, Rick.
Mr. Chairman, we received about 10 to 15 inches of rain over a 17-hour time frame last week, and that ranged from 10 p.m. Tuesday to 3 p.m. on Wednesday, and it caused some pretty severe flash flooding within the parish. The graphs that you have a hard copy of are going to come up on the screen now. If we can get Marshall to put it up there. So what you're looking at is a 17-hour time frame. This is on the Panama Canal. It ran from 10 p.m. on Tuesday to 3 p.m. on Wednesday. Dropped a total of 12.9 inches of rain within that time frame. If you crunch the numbers on it, what you're going to see is for every 1 inch of rain that fell, the waterway rose about 0.65 inches. So fairly severe amount of rain that came down that caused all the flooding in that watershed. Overall, throughout the parish, it ranged from anywhere from 8 to 15 inches of rain throughout the parish, so it was fairly severe. The damages as a result of that, looking at 90 to 120 structures that were either damaged or were at risk of flooding when they called in and reported to the Emergency Operations Center. We had 150 roads, more than 150 roads or sections of road that were impacted because of high water. We started a detailed damage assessment today. We did a rapid needs assessment last week, but we'll start a detailed damage assessment today, and it'll continue throughout the week. I know Bill is going to cover most of the data on the East Bank, but I want to cover just real quickly some issues that we had on the West Bank. What we're looking at, and get to it, this is going to be the A-bin area of the parish. And what you're seeing is the Tebow property as you're flying east away from Donaldsonville. So and this was on Saturday morning after the water had receded. So you can see the area on the Tebow property that was inundated with water. I'm going to fast forward it a little bit because the plane is going to continue to fly east and then turn west again, heading back towards A-bin. This is looking towards CF Industries in Donaldsonville, so you can see the volume of water that it contained in that area. We're going to fly up the River Road, continuing to fly west towards Donaldsonville. And the plane is going to fly south, and it's going to turn towards A-bin. Now, this was the water that impacted A-bin. It impacted the back of St. Jude subdivision. It impacted the APSO jail around that area. So you can see the water. It has receded, but it's still up in the A-bin area around this area. So let me fast forward it just a little bit more. And that's where the water is in the A-bin area up to here. This is what impacted St. Jude. But I want to show you one more video as soon as we get done here. You can see the water here up to the structures almost to the River Road. And again, this is what impacted St. Jude and impacted the hotel along Highway 70. And this is probably the best shot that you have of it on the south side of A-bin. I want to show you one more video. This is the APSO jail or the parish jail on the West Bank. The critical thing is when the plane is going to turn and fly back south again, and I want to show you a couple areas here. What I want you to notice is this canal that runs around the side of the jail and all the other ditches that come from that side. You can see the parking lot in the jail is still wet from the flooding. It's sustained just minor damage from the flooding, and it's still flooded around its sewer plant. But as you're moving back south, I want you to notice the hotel here. Let me see if I can pause it as soon as the wing comes up. Right here. These canals that run around the jail to this area right here next to the hotel and the ditches here, you can see the area in the back in the St. James Parish that flooded. So this constriction is probably what caused, I'm not a hydrologist, but I think that's probably what caused most of the flooding on the West Bank. We had a couple other issues. Bill's going to cover the data on the East Bank, but if any of you want to see the other aerial videos that we have, Astroland, anywhere else in the parish, you're welcome to come to the EOC, and I'll show them to you at that time.
Thank you, Rick. Any questions?
I've got some other data if you want it real quick.
Okay, go ahead. I thought you was finished.
Okay, we got flood control, Lamar Dixon. We had 3,000 pre-positioned sandbags and APSO and the Hunts Correctional Trustees, as well as the drainage and DPW crews, used 4 automated sandbagging machines and distributed 9,500 sandbags for a total of 12,500 sandbags at Lamar Dixon. DPW set up 12 public sandbagging points throughout the parish. Each point was initially set up with 12 yards of sand and 1,000 sandbags. During the event, DPW delivered 445 cubic yards of sand and 32,000 sandbags. In terms of sheltering operations, OEP and the Red Cross opened the shelter on 2 nights at Lamar Dixon, at the Lamar Dixon gym. At that time, no residents from the parish wanted the shelter, so the shelter closed at 11 p.m. each night. This may be one of our only short-term options for housing for right now, but so it's still on the table, and it's still available if we need to open it up. In terms of public assistance and individual assistance, the parish threshold for damages to get federal assistance is $327,000. we're going to vastly exceed that amount of damages for Ascension Parish. But here's the challenge. Assumption Parish, St. James Parish, and Vermilion also sustained damages. But the state threshold is $6 million, so I'm not very confident that we're going to meet that threshold to get any federal assistance. In terms of social services, I contacted the United Way. They're going to work with Volunteer Ascension, and they're going to try to get a grant in there to help people out. It's not going to be a very big grant, but they're going to do the best we can. And I've contacted a couple of other social service organizations to help our residents as much as we can. As far as the response, police and fire responded with high water vehicles and small boats to help rescue operations. 911 was able to communicate directly with DPW on the 800 megahertz public safety system. DPW and drainage barricade, I can't say enough about them. They did a fantastic job with the barricade crews, and we use all public outreach outlets to get the word out to the public. We're projecting to open the Amite and Diversion Canal by close of business tomorrow. You know, the water's still high, but we're projecting to open it by close of business tomorrow. And then lastly, the one lesson learned from this event, we try to take some from each event that we have, is that through a Homeland Security grant, we want to purchase 4 seagoing containers, put them in the at-risk areas because we know exactly where they are. We're going to fill them with pre-filled sandbags on pallets, so we can just open them up and the public can go out to these sea cans and start getting them immediately instead of having to come to Lamar-Dixon to get them. So that's one project that we want to take on in the future. And other than being subject to your questions, this concludes my briefing, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Rick? Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Todd Lambert.
Yeah, Rick, I had a lot of constituents call me and said when they went to Lamar-Dixon, they were limited to like 10 bags, 20 bags, which that can't help you, you know, when you're trying to sandbag a home. Is there an issue that we couldn't keep up with?
Yeah, there was. The initial 3,000 sandbags went within hours. I mean, we had to load some up on dump trucks and bring them to the West Bank. And again, this was unprecedented amount of flooding. And normally that 3,000 would be a buffer to get us started till we can get the machines up and running. But it went so quickly is one reason they had to limit it. And we did bring it back up later on, but we had to limit it just to keep up with what was going on.
Okay.
Quick
Something we
question.
might need to improve some type of way, you know.
You
Like you
said
said, the
you-
sea cans or whatever may be a plus.
That may be some assistance in the future, because we noticed that we had to limit it. So this would be to get out to the risk areas where we know it's going to flood, is just get them pre-positioned in that area. Would make it go a lot faster for our residents.
So when you took them to the West Bank, you had a limit on them over there?
We didn't have a limit there. We knew we had some, so we dropped some off. But it took some of the inventory that we had at Lamar-Dixon, and it just didn't catch up in time when the public started coming through.
Good deal, thank you. Any other questions for Rick? Thank you, Rick, appreciate all your efforts. Mr. Rue? Give us,
Excuse me a second. Rick. Question I wanted to make sure and ask. People that ask for public assistance if they lost their house and their car and stuff like that, what, you know, since it is an emergency, what is there available for them? That was asked.
And we've been having some residents call the EOC and come by the EOC today, and unfortunately, until we can get a federal declaration, which I'm not confident we're going to get, continue to call the EOC, and we'll try to put you in touch with the human service organizations within the parish, and we'll try to help you as much as we can. But as far as FEMA individual assistance,
Yeah.
I'm not confident we're going to get it, but we're trying.
Basically, you'll be dealing with Red Cross mostly.
Red Cross, United Way, some of these other agencies that we have.
And then the other thing for the shelter, the criteria for shelter, because we had people on the West Bank was trying to come to the East Bank and didn't have a car because they got, and is there any criteria where a shelter can be open on the West Bank whenever we do have some type of emergency like this? I know there was some criteria about
Right.
what meets the standards, and
Right, and it depends on the number of people that require sheltering. We'd have to run 2 shelter manager teams, and right now it doesn't rate to open one up both the East and West Bank, because it would all be consolidated at Lamar-Dixon. So we'd get the Red Cross shelter managers in at that location. But if anybody on the West Bank that would need any assistance getting over here to a shelter, just call 621-8360, and we'll offer any assistance that we can.
yeah, okay. So you just encourage people to call in at the office there at Emergency Operations?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Rick. Mr. Rue, can you give us a rundown on what we got on the East Bank?
Yes, we're going to bring up a map onto the screen. What we want to do is specifically talk about an area that received the most flooding in the parish. And we're talking about the Panama Canal and Conway Bayou watershed. outlined in red is about the area of that watershed. It is, most of it is in Ascension Parish, but down here is actually St. James Parish. And that is the storage area, predominantly the storage area is this green area to the south, that all the water, a lot of the water, when it overtops Conway and Panama basins, it goes into this green area between us and St. James Parish. What happened with this last event, the drainage, the storm itself actually came up this direction here. And when it did, it filled up this basin first, which is our storage basin, filled that in, and then kept proceeding north and dropping, 12 to 15 inches of rain over St. James Parish and us at the same time. So part of the problem that we have is this basin was already taken up, the storage in the basin was taken up before the rain event filled up the channels in our parish, and the water really didn't have any place to go. The only place that it could go is through these openings at the railroad tracks and Highway 61. That yellow line represents the combination of railroad track and US 61. And as you can see, there's a lot of area, St. James and us, trying to get through. The natural course of drainage is actually this way. And it has to get through this area to get to the Lake Maurepas, the Blind River Basin, Lake Maurepas Basin. This is a levee, it's a barricade to keep the drainage from this system from going there under a high rain, a major rain event like we had this past week. We actually surveyed this area along the railroad tracks. The channels was open and flowing, but everything was overtopped, and there was a differential between the two sides of the railroad tracks, proving the fact that this railroad track was holding back the drainage, keeping it from going across. Another reason we had a severe event as it was because in addition to this levee, preventing the drainage going across, we had a southeast and southern wind blowing. When you have a southern wind blowing or southeast wind blowing, it's coming pretty much from this direction here. And what happens is it forces all the water from the Gulf, Lake Pontchartrain, Lake Maurepas, back up into this basin. It won't allow the water to go out efficiently. Also, we had a high tide coming in from the Gulf and Lake Maurepas beginning Tuesday and going with a low tide Tuesday. It started rising Tuesday, and it went all the way to Saturday for the high tide. So you had a lot of things happening which prevented this water from getting out. We have all of this come together on the type of event we had. The water just can't get out. When it does, it overflows and it stays. We experienced during this event for days that the water just sat still. It could not flow. We rated some of the flow coming out of Conway at maybe 1 foot per second, which is extremely low. It just did not have a flow at all. And in fact, it lasted all the way till yesterday and today, where it stayed over top of most of the land area in this basin, or the lower part of the basin. So basically, that's what happened. It was needless to say, some type of a perfect storm. Again, when you had the unfavorable winds blowing it in, high tides, and record rainfall, all at the same time. And that is the reason we had such a severe flooding event, basically. Now, what can be done about it? One thing that we're advocating is looking at going into a joint venture with St. James Parish, maybe with the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority, Pontchartrain Levee District, and the Corps of Engineers to try to do something to open up this barricade, this levee that's caused by the the train tracks and by the airline highway to try to get more outlets across here to get all of this water back across, back into this basin. The other alternative is to, and this is something that St. James is looking at, is putting a ring levee around the St. James Parish at the high ground interface along the St. James up to Ascension Parish. If they do that, we can put a ring levee around Sorrento with floodgates at Conway and Panama with flood pumping stations at each place and provide the same protection to get it across. But that's something that's has to be a joint venture between us and St. James Parish, and we're nowhere near, coming up with a plan on that yet. But again, this is alternative. The bottom line is we have to do something with railroad tracks, and we have to do something with the US 61 to get the water across. If we get the same type of rain event, unless something is done with this, we'll have the same results of it. Something else we're looking at, I'll bring it up here. Outside of this, again, this is the boundary line between our pumping station, which is Mount Marvin Bro Pump Station over here, which is a protected flood plain, and the natural drainage, gravity drainage system of Panama and Conway on this side. There are a couple places right along here where the natural drainage on a situation when it overflows Conway actually enters into our pumping system at this point right here. And again, about right here. It's an overflow of swales that actually relieves Conway and gets to Bayou Francois. And again, Bayou Francois is in our pumping system. Another thing that we recommend is actually going in here and re-dredging these two channels and actually making them much larger, of higher capacity, with flood control structures at Conway. So under the same scenario, they can be opened up and they can take a lot more water into our pumping system, where we can actually pump them out through the Marvin Bro Pump Station. That's another something that another system that we're looking at to relieve the pressure from all of the Conway and Panama system. And this actually is the benefits the Panama system more than the Conway system more than the Panama. But that's where we have more of our problems, is the Conway Bayou. All the way up through Gonzales and all the way up to Astroland and Darrow. Everything drains through here into that system. And again, if you can't have a way of relieving it and have a way of getting it through this, the two levees, the levees that's put there by the airline highway and railroad tracks, then you cannot lessen the severity of the same event in the future. So that's exactly what happened. I'm going to go through a couple of things about the event itself for the drainage district's response. The rainfall, this is in the Conway-Panama Canal watershed, was about 18 inches. Marvin Bro watershed was about 15. Henderson Bayou watershed almost 10, and Donaldsonville estimated around 12. The Marvin Bro pump station started at 6:30 a.m. Wednesday, 28th, and the elevation at that time was 2.35. The run time and pumps, we ran all 6 pumps for 74 hours straight, and that's at maximum capacity. And then we rotated 1 to 5 pumps after that 74 hours just to maintain a low elevation. That's when most of the event was over with. The Sorrento pump station started at elevation 2.5 at 6:30, May 31st. And 3 pumps ran for 21 hours straight. And 1 of 3 pumps kept the elevation at low levels until Saturday. And that's May 31st, it's supposed to be May 28th.
Yeah.
It's a typo.
That is a typo.
Yeah, May 28th, and because we started up both pumping systems at the same time. And it ended Saturday, May 31st. We took the pumps offline. Again, the wind direction was south-southeast during the whole event, between 5 and 10, with gusts 10 to 15 miles an hour. Low tide was on the 27th, 1.52 feet. High tide was on the 31st. So again, we hit it when the rising tide, and the tides kept rising all the way to Saturday. And again, to go through the causation, it's basically the rain intensity and the fact that the water couldn't get out in that drainage basin into the larger basin of Lake Maurepas and Lake Pontchartrain. Possible corrective actions. And again, we're going through the regional project between Ascension Parish, St. James Parish, and Pontchartrain Levee District, Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority, and Corps of Engineers to construct multiple control structures through the railroad and US 61 to accomplish the following: allow for more outflow from the basin during main rain events, and also the possibility of providing some surge protection in case you get Amite River flooding or Gulf of Mexico storms. The other alternative is to enter into a project with the same agencies, and instead of doing this, put a ring levee in Sorrento with floodgates and pump stations on Conway and Panama. And that would provide a regional, of course, that has to be a regional project with St. James doing the same thing and tying into our protection levee. The other thing is to improve existing overflow channels from Brittany Street and north of Sorrento, which I just showed you, the overflow control structures on Conway Bayou and Bayou Francois, and put it into the Marvin Bro pump station. Now, if we do that, we add in more water to the basin. And to handle that at the Marvin Bro pump station, we're recommending that we go with number 7 pump. We have 6 pumps now. We have infrastructure for number 7, and we're recommending we go with number 7 pump. We'll add additional overflow if needed from Conway Bayou. It'd add additional overflow if protection from the Cypress Swamp area as part of the Law Ridge Levee Extension Project. We're looking at doing the same type of project with the Law Ridge Levee Extension and providing an overflow from that protected area into our protection levee system and into the pump station. In case it rains a lot, and the same scenario happen like this in that basin, you better take it out through our pumping system. And they have enough pumping capacity for flood protection to the inspection and upgrade of existing pumps. Like you know, every pump gonna have to be taken down one at a time to do inspection and some restoration of the pumping system because it's 25 years old, and we will begin to start having some problems with it. And as we take one pump down at all, that lessens the total number of pumps that we can use. And to go back on my comments earlier, in this event, we ran all 6 pumps, maximum capacity for 74 hours straight. If one of those pumps would have went down, we would have really had a problem with rising elevation within our levee system. We also we recommend have a formal recommendation from the East Ascension Gravity Drainage District and West Ascension Gravity Drainage District to the Planning Commission to amend the parish planning and development ordinances to reflect the following. Post-development stormwater runoff shall be a minimum of 25% less than pre-development runoff. Right now, it's a zero impact. Whatever it is, undeveloped has to equal, the post-development has to equal pre-development. What we're saying is it has to be 25% less. In other words, you have to hold back 25% of that water from what it was before development. Private developments and public facilities shall be designed to a 25-year storm event. Again, that includes the public facilities for road drainage, road covers. In the private developments, that's all subsurface drainage. Everything has to comply with a 25-year storm event instead of a 10-year. And all commercial developments shall abide by these drainage requirements regardless of size. You know, one lot or one parcel with a just a small amount, just parking area and everything, still have to provide the same 25-year protection and retain 25% post-development from pre-development runoff. And also, the municipalities must adopt the similar regulations. We can't allow the municipalities to not have the retainage and the same requirement that we require within the parish. And this is something that we asking the Drainage Board to make the recommendation to the Planning Commission so we can proceed with that. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Real quick, we got a couple speakers that came on this. I'd like to give them an opportunity to speak. We just got a card from Mr. John Farrell.
Yes, sir. Well, I live in the Southwood subdivision,
Yes.
and one thing that I haven't heard here is about a retention pond. You have all that land sitting down there on the back part where it was going to be, it was Sonny Lamendola's, and that was, I guess, gave them to the city.
Yeah.
So you got all that land back there. I know there was a thing to make a park, and it's not going to happen now. So you have a whole lot of land out there that it could be made into a retention pond. And I haven't heard anything about the retention pond at all.
I can comment on
I
it.
think that came up a couple meetings ago, Mr. Rue.
Yes,
Could
we
you
did have
shed some
plans
light
to
on that?
participate with the city and do a dog park shed and a huge pond. And what we suggested is that we can enter into a cooperative or intergovernmental agreement with the city, but we provide a lot of labor to actually dig the pond, but we would use it as the area of detention for that, the Silverleaf and Southwood, mainly for Silverleaf and Southwood subdivisions. As of right now, I think that was tabled by the city. I don't know if they're going any further with it, with that project. I don't think it was funded through the next year's funding. So other than that, I don't know what the status is with the city.
We can have Major Drainage contact the city and get an update for us on that, but I'd appreciate it if you could also contact your personal councilman and your city folks.
I'll go ahead and do that.
Put a little heat on it from that end.
I'll
We'll
do it.
check on it for you, brother.
The other two things are, I heard the EOC guy talking about sandbags, and we ran out and all that. Well, we have so much capacity at Lamar Dixon that they don't use. Why don't they just go ahead and have like 10,000 bags sitting there?
What we're planning on doing, we did buy 2 sandbagging machines. Our plan is now, as per President Martinez, is to build a building at Lamar Dixon, specifically to house the sandbagging machines and also to keep a stockpile of sand in that, under cover so it is dry, and to go ahead and begin the process of bagging surplus sand, bagging sand to keep as inventory. So we get into this event again, we'll have a lot more on hand than what we had this time. The problem we had in the past is that we didn't have a place to actually put these machines and set them up and leave them set up. And it takes a little while to set them up and take them down. But we're going to be proceeding with the building of this building to house it. But in the meantime, President Martinez wants to get inmates and get other help to begin sandbagging now, to get an inventory for the hurricane season and store them at Lamar Dixon and maybe even in sea cans at specific locations throughout the parish. So it's easily accessible by the people that lives in the problem areas. But we know what those problem areas are, and they'll be available to the citizens there. All we have to do is open it up.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. We have another speaker, Mr. Ronnie Bourgeois.
Good afternoon, board members. I got a lot of problems. You all know that. I was here 3 weeks ago. I've been coming back and forth with Mr. Randy Quart and Kenny Sheck's now for about 8 years now, and I have solved a lot of problems on my own. It's not my responsibility to unplug my bridge that crosses my, they said my bridge, it's not my bridge, excuse me, let me rephrase that. It's the Parish bridge that was maintained for 28, 38 years, and it boils down to where the water plugs up right now as we sit here. There's 12 feet of trash piled up, blocked under the bottom, that's holding back water. There's some people got water in their houses that's required for y'all to take care of, unplugging the drainage system. I've called up several times. This time I didn't call to see what would happen. And exactly what happened, somebody's laying on their legs. Mr. Spokesman last time told me there was no money for Conway Bay to dredge it. I think it's time we break open a piggy bank somewhere and get the money. This is wrong, people. Y'all flooding out our country, our parish. That's a good example for our parish. We want people to come in and help us. and make ourselves wonderful parish, people that spoke, people that spoke up for and be proud of as our representatives. We don't have no representative that's doing anything for Sorrento, much less Gonzales, much less anywhere else in the parish. Water's backing up, okay? What causes water to back up? Debris. We had the canal cleaned several years ago. FEMA came in. They did a fairly decent job, what they were told to do. They did not do it right. I myself was eyewitness. There was trees that should have been cut down and removed. They didn't have no tags on them. But who's responsible for that? Fellas, we have a problem, and there's some people going, our insurance rates going to go up. Y'all know they're going up already. People don't have flood insurance. They can't afford it. I, as myself, as a fixed income, I'm retired. My wife is on disability. I mean, what can I do? I cannot get any equipment to unplug your canal that goes through my property. And I have 2 drainages that's going through my property. I need help. Let's pick that bridge up. Not at my responsibility, at the parish responsibility. No, I mean, you got to only do so much. What does it take to make this parish realize we're in a crucial moment? Sitting there talking about no money. FEMA helped us out a bunch of times. That money shouldn't have been diverted to dig out the canal rather than clean it. Right or wrong? Just give me a statement, right or wrong? Y'all did just the opposite thing. Somebody came in, made y'all an offer, sound good, y'all took it. What kind of offer y'all gonna make now when somebody come in and offer y'all to help y'all? Y'all had a track hole on 941. There's no debris there. The debris is on Brittany Street and also crossing Highway 22. If it passes me up, it blocks up on 22. Now y'all diverted the water going to up the road where I'm at off of Highway 22. The last storm we had, somebody had done some revision. We back flooded big time. There's places in there that should have blockages, or like you call caps, to hold the water back, diverted the opposite way. St. James plugged up, they said we'd be the cause of it. Where do we go with this? Where do we go with this? Who has the knowledge to figure this out? None of y'all evidently. I figured out one thing. Where I was at, if I'd had a machine, I could eliminate a lot of problems. The problem lies on Brittany Street, Conway, Bayou, sir. I know you say you don't have no money. I don't have it.
Thank you, Ronnie.
The public don't have it. Now, I was telling you, thank y'all for your time, but something got to be done right. I'm coming to this meeting, I'm fed up with the situation we're doing. If I can help y'all any come with knowledge, pumping station in Gramercy, they want to put one over there. The railroad, I mentioned
Ronnie,
Ken
please
Stein.
try to wrap it up, brother.
Just my last statement. Ken, you remember I told you about the railroad station over there in St. James? They reverted all these cross ties, got it up higher that the water can drain. Why don't we do that with these people? Thank y'all for your time, but see what you can do. And y'all excuse me, because I am fed up getting people hurt and fed and drowned out their house.
Thank you,
It's
Ronnie.
unreal. Thank you, son.
Take it. We have another speaker. I think this is Dana Casey.
Mr. Ryan must have said it all. But good evening. I have a problem and I have a question. I mean, y'all, everybody working on drainage. I've been in Astroland subdivision for 34 years, and we have never had water like we had. Okay, everybody's talking about you putting drainage here, you putting pumps here, you doing this, but the bottom line is we never had none of these problems before you even considered putting pumps here and putting pumps there, because we had our own system going. Water would fall. Katrina came, Rita came. We had water covered the road. Nobody had water in their house. When the rain stopped, the water was gone. Okay, this time we get water and nobody can't tell us where it's coming from, but everybody else, all the streets, 44 was empty, all the streets was dry, but we was drowning in water and nobody couldn't tell us anything. Oh, this was done, that was done. Okay, and then all of a sudden, once everybody started complaining, all of a sudden the water disappeared. I have a problem with that. What was the problem with the pumps in the back? Why weren't they turned on? We have our own pumps in the back of the subdivision. Why weren't they put on? We have our own sewer thing going on, but yet everybody else's sewage was in our yard, in our homes, in our tubs, in our bathrooms. We had a problem with that. Then we have all these families back there that we don't have no questions, no answers to the questions that we was given as we talked to people. They come out, we talked to Mr. Turner, we've talked to the president. Nobody have answers. Everybody having the same thing. We're trying to do this, we're trying to do this. Well, guess what? They said what beats a failure is a trier, but I'm sick of all this trying. Somebody needs to get a job done. My taxes are paid right here in Ascension Parish. So there's no such thing. If all of us paying taxes, where's the money going? Why we can't get done what they're gonna make us comfortable so we can keep you comfortable? Because it seems as though y'all comfortable, but we're not. And we, like Mr. Ron said, we are fed up. We are tired. We're the ones that's paying the taxes, but we're the ones that's suffering. We're the ones that don't have. And we're the ones that's asking questions and nobody can't seem to give us an answer. Any answers?
Thank you, ma'am. I'll try to get somebody to answer your question. You got, all right. Okay, just briefly, she made a statement that the pumps were not on. What pump?
They were never on.
What pumps are we talking about? I don't know that we got drainage pumps right there.
We don't have any drainage pumps in that area. Basically, what she's talking about is the sewer pumps in the back for the sewer pond and for the subdivision. So, but there's not any pumps that that drain anything around Astraland. We don't have any pumps in that area at all that covers that area, nor do we for Pelican Point or any other area in that basin there.
And I understand that, Mr. Martinez, but as long as those pumps are on in the bank, we never have water in that subdivision.
I don't think, and I'm not trying to argue or anything else, but the pumps were actually on the whole time. And I don't think they ever went off on the sewer.
Yes.
We was informed that they would turn on the next morning.
No, ma'am, I don't.
One put on, ma'am.
They
They turned it on about 3 days later, and it really moved the water fast, got it out.
Ronnie, please, let's look. Let's give the same respect to the speaker right here that we gave you guys.
We will get with our sewer department, but when I questioned that on the sewer, that we were told that the pumps stayed on the entire time. I talked to Mr. Mataslin actually today about it, and he told me the same thing. But those pumps don't do anything as far as any drainage, help solve any drainage problem. They're just for sewer.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have another speaker, Ms. Lori Brumfield.
How y'all doing?
How you doing, Ms. Brumfield?
I'm all right. I live on Brittany Road. I have a drainage canal that runs through my property. I got a railroad trestle. And I've been trying for years before I ever flooded to get somebody out there to come look at this, just to clean the canal, put a bank on it. They brought some equipment that ran through the middle of the canal, but when they got to the railroad, they stopped because they said they don't have any authority to clear near the railroad. They can't get authority, can't contact the right person. I don't know. It's been years. I've been writing letters. The railroad truss is a mess. The canal looks like somebody's ditch in front of their house. It's never been maintained, ever. My dad my grandfather homesteaded that land. My dad will tell you nobody has ever cleaned that canal on our property. I wrote you letters, Kent Scheck-Snyder. I've been to Ron Savoy, all read, somebody, I don't know, too many people. Just writing letters. Before we ever flooded, just come look at this property, dig it out, because we're going to really catch it, and we've been catching it. This canal drains from far. I mean, you could follow this canal off of 30 Southwood subdivision. It comes way from there. It comes in the ditch. It looks like a ditch when it gets to my property. It's never maintained. They don't even have banks on it, because when they brought that heavy equipment, it just plowed down the banks. So you know what happens whenever the water rises? Every bit of it comes out of the ditch onto my property. And we've tried, and I have written letters, and I have many letters. I called Kansas. The railroad started in Kansas City, and I got the name of the person that is in charge of the railroad, Kansas City Railroad. And he said Ascension Parish is the hardest parish government to work with. I mean, explain it. I don't know. I got his name if
Really?
anybody wants it.
Yeah, I'd like his name.
I
Whenever
got
you
it, and I
send
got
to
his
me.
number. He said, I'm waiting for somebody to cooperate with me. I was like, yay, good, because it runs through my property. They won't clean any ditches along the railroad. So I have a ditch and a railroad straight through my property. It's a mess. And this was really, you know, my mom's been there 50 some odd years. She said it's the worst it's ever been. A lot of people, it's the worst it's ever been. I don't know what the solution is, but I know my little solution that I've been trying to get fixed for a very long time. And the water running over from Conway, we were just in a big circle there. So
Thank you, ma'am.
anyhow, that's my point. I wanted somebody to hear it.
Appreciate you coming. That's all the speakers we have on that. Any discussion? Many of the council members. Yes, Mr. Travis Turner.
Thank you. Now, as far as the pumps are turned on Wednesdays for the Marvin Bro.
Yes, sir.
Now, why weren't those pumps turned on sooner?
There was no need for it. Number one, the event, you have to understand that, number one, we didn't know that there was going to be 11 inches of rain Wednesday. We looked at it, we were expecting anywhere between 3 and 5 inches of rain, maybe 6. We had everything manned or had our crews ready to start the pumping operation Wednesday morning if needed, and the men were there. The elevation was 2.5. The Corps actually says the elevation we cannot start before the elevation, at elevation 2 or less. Most of the time we do, but we look at the storm event coming and we make a judgment call on when to start the pumps to draw down the system. The Marvin Bro pump station and the protected area that it drains did fairly well in this event. We did not have a major problem in the Marvin Bro protected basin. What we had the problem at is in the unprotected gravity flow system of the Panama and Conway basin, which is not tied into our pumping system at all. It's strictly a gravity flow, natural flow system. And so the turning on of our pumps at Marvin Bro pump station has nothing to do with the Conway Panama Canal basin. Absolutely nothing.
So when was the last time the Conway and the Panama were cleaned out?
In what sense? For snagging,
Yes.
it was done back, and I think it's Gustav, and I can specifically say that we had NRCS, and I think the primary contract with NRCS come in with a grant to do the snagging of all our bayous, and specifically they said this to us: go in, identify only the debris that fell with Gustav, nothing else. Tag it, and we said, well, we'll pay for the extra cleanup. So if you're going to go in there with a contractor, have them clean everything. They said, no, it's not allowed. The only thing that can be cleaned up as far as that grant was specifically new vegetation that can be identified to have fallen during that hurricane, and nothing else. And that's why only certain things were removed and most of the stuff wasn't. Old debris could not be touched. We're in a process right now, and it's actually about 40 to 45% complete with the snagging of Panama and Conway Bayou. So that's in the process right now. And you're talking about dredging. Both those channels are natural canopied channels, which means it's very, very hard to get a permit to go and widen the channel. So in the past, we've been relying on just debris removal and removal of obstructions at some of the crossings to enable the flow to go on through, and in most cases, it's okay. The only time we had a problem in the past is with the surges coming from the Isaac event, where that's actually where the surge from the Gulf coming into the system and pushing water back up the system. For us headwater, this is the worst event that we had on headwater coming down from the upper regions of the Panama and Conway and coming down. And the reason it was so severe was because we had historic, and I repeat, historic amount of rainfall, intensity of rainfall. When you ask, I've never seen this kind of flood water, my answer is you've never seen this much of rainfall. The reason the water built up is because you had rainfall, a historic amount of rainfall in a short amount of time, You had the tides was coming in, preventing the water go out. You had a restriction that the railroad tracks and Highway 61 preventing the overflow to get out. And you had a wind direction from the south-southeast, providing more hindrance from that water getting out. You put it all together, that's what happened.
So my question is, as far as the old debris, so the drainage system can't remove, we cannot remove the old debris?
We can now, and we are. This is our own project. Going back into the last event what this gentleman was talking about before, that was under a grant by NRCS. They would not, in fact, they had their own inspector with us. They had their own inspector determining which was a hurricane debris, a new debris, and which was not. He's the one that tagged it. We didn't. And he's the one that determined what came out.
On a couple more questions. As far as those sandbags, the pre-packed sandbags, if we already know what areas are problem areas, why weren't sandbags brought to those areas? Kind of it's in the Astroland subdivision, and there's a lot of elderly folks there, people who didn't have transportation to get those sandbags. And it was just a load of sand dumped out there with bags, with no shovels. And it kind of defeats the purpose of having it out there if no one has a shovel or anything to fill the sandbags up when you have a machine, or we just purchased 2 machines to fill sandbags.
Yes, and again, our policy has been for a long time, many years now, is to in an event like this, a similar event, heavy rainfall or any kind of flooding event, that stockpiles of sand with sandbags are brought to the fire stations. We ask that we provide as much assistance as possible to bag the sand. And again, with the bagging machines and with the inmates provided by the sheriff's office, we're able to do a good bit of sand bagging, but not enough to provide enough sandbags for everybody that needs it. We ask that the people help themselves. When we bring the sand out and bags out, we have to have help from the public itself to start sandbagging at the locales. And again, we just don't have enough bag sand to drop all bag sand off at every location, especially specific homes and businesses. We cannot, drop off stockpiles of bagged sand at those locations. We just don't have the ability to do it. We don't have enough bagged sand and enough people to do it.
Well, I know I asked about this the last time we had a rain event, as for the shovels being brought to those locations. So whatever occurred with that, because when I went to Astroland, I didn't see any shovels out there.
Again, we provide as much as we can with, under the circumstance. We do not have an inventory of that stuff enough to supply every location with, 10 or 12 or 15 shovels. We just don't have the assets. It may be something we can look at in the future. Again, we ask that the public, and most people out there, a lot of people out there have shovels. We ask that they take the shovels and start and assist each other in bagging the sand.
Okay, and my final question, well, as of right now, my final question. We had some residents also that were not able to get out of their homes because of small children or elderly or sick. And they called for assistance, but they was unable to get anyone to help them. So they were forced to either wade through the water or have a neighbor help them. What's our response to that? Why don't we have anything set up to help those individuals out? A hotline?
That may be able to answer by OEP. I don't know if he's still here. But in any case, most of the time, those calls go into the sheriff's office and 911 for assistance or the ambulances. And again, we don't have any control over that. Rick, do you have more of an answer?
I know the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office has several high-water vehicles. They have Humvees and a 5-ton. In addition to that, the fire services use some of their high-water vehicles to rescue people. I know the Gonzales Fire Department let 5th Ward Fire Department use their boat to get back to Astroland to help some people get out of that area. But I know some high-water vehicles were employed during the incident.
You saying, Mr. Turner, that you had people that called and they couldn't get any help?
Yes, when I went out to
Who did they
Astroland,
call?
They said they called 911. They had a rescue vehicle at the front of the neighborhood, and they refused to go to the back to get the individual from the back. So that's why I'm asking this question as far as who was over there and what's the problem? Why did they not go to the back to get the people from the back that had a problem getting out?
Maybe your fire department, I mean, I don't know.
Yes, I went out there Thursday afternoon, and I was told the same thing, that the ambulance came, but then turned around and said they couldn't go through the high water. And also that the sheriff's office, with their equipment, was scared that they was going to go off the road, and it would have been a problem. So at that point, we got some people from the fire department to go back there and help anybody that was needed. But generally, that would fall under the 911 and rescue operations of the sheriff's department and the fire department, then we would assist. So that, to answer your question. But in the meantime, if we close enough, we'll do what we can too.
Anything else, Mr. Turner?
Well, on that note, I just said, I mean, I hate to use this word, but that's pathetic on our part, that the individuals in Ascension land had to use a tractor with a trailer at the back to go help people that's back there already, instead of the parish or the sheriff's office being able to help the residents of our parish who are, as they said earlier, paying those taxes. I mean, as a councilman, I'm ashamed that that had to occur, and that problem need to be fixed before the next rain event occurs.
Okay. We got another speaker, Mr. Jesse Bartlett.
I thank you, Councilman, and I'd just like to verify two things. Astro land has no drainage, ditch, or whatever you want to call it, going to Conway Bayou or either Panama. None whatsoever. What you have now is two small ditches, one right by the fire department, another one by the Brown resident, coming to 22. And 22 is clogged up. The water's supposed to go down to Walter Hill Street and then go down. If anybody can tell me when the last time that ditch was cleaned out, I'm talking about the Walter Hill, the bayou there. And we have requested that over and over again. And we don't have it. It wouldn't have eliminated the problem we had, but it would have helped. Because 22, if you notice, even 2 days after the water had receded, on 22, the ditch is still full of water. And that's because of the fact that, hey, it clogged up on 22 and on that left-hand side. And you only have 2 outlets for Astro land, and those are small ditches. I don't know where the fallacy came from that you had a canal back of Astro land. You don't have any. So the water can't go that way. But it needs to be open in terms of the 22 going up to Walter Hill Street and then take that bayou back to wherever, whether it's Conway. Which one, Mr.?
Conway Bayou.
Conway Bayou. Now, the last time that bayou been cleaned out, I've been there 70-some years, and it has never. But if we do something, and some people say, well, you know, that was 100-year reign. It may have been, but we can't sit here and say it's going to be another 100 years. So whatever we need to do to eliminate or try and eliminate, and everybody got problems, let's get on it and try to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jesse.
I can comment on a couple of
Yes,
things
sir.
there.
Mr. Rue.
Actually, Mr. Bartley, the drainage from Astro land goes into several ditches along the side of Astro land and behind Astro land that goes through the pasture land in the rear. In fact, I rode it last week, and I rode it again today. Those channels are clear. We actually did a project on all those channels several months ago, but we completely redug 3 different channels going back to the Conway Bayou.
Do any of those go all the way back? Mr.
Yes, sir, they do. Yes, sir. They go back to a cross channel that goes through Mr. Melançon's property. The rest of it goes across to I think it's the Jackson ditch, and it all goes to Panama. So there's 2 different avenues for the water to get through that property from Astro Land to Conway Bayou. And again, a project, and I have all the information on it, project was done several months ago to completely redig all of those channels, those ditches going back to Panama. So that's where the primary drainage goes from Astro Land. The other thing about Highway 22, we do have a project, and we talked about it with President Martinez already. We had a meeting. The fact of the matter is, there is a project along Highway 22 going from Astro Land to that outfall ditch, which is across from Walter Hill Road, what you mentioned a minute ago. The project is to actually replace and upgrade all of the culverts from Astro Land all the way to this outfall ditch and completely redig the outfall ditch from 22 to Conway Bayou. Right now, we just received all of the permits from the permission from the landowners. We went for bids for the fence replacement because all of the fence on the outfall ditch had to be replaced because all the trees had to be removed to enlarge the capacity of that ditch at least twice the size it is now. And I remind you, Mr. Bartley, that Highway 22 is a state road. Really, we do not usually touch a state road. We turn this over to the DOTD to handle. But in this case, because we agree that it is a critical situation with the flooding and with the drainage, that we took it upon it ourselves, the drainage district, to spend thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, to upgrade all those covers and to upgrade the outfall ditch to Conway. We waiting on a permit from DOTD. We already ordered the covers for the replacement, and as soon as we get the permit and receipt of receiving the covers, that project will start, and I think it will be a big help.
I understand all that, Mr.
Yes, sir.
But what I'm saying is the mere fact that we met better than 2.5 months ago, and we never did, when the people in the community wanted to know what was the status of the project, couldn't find it out. That's what I'm saying. And the thing about it, at that time, you had one legislator there who said, if you have any problem with the permit, let us know, and we'll help. But you said you didn't have any problem.
We did not.
Thank you, sir.
The process of the permit is to submit our design to DOTD. They review it, they make comments, send it back to us. We review the comments, we make changes to it, we send it back to them. It's a two-way process, and when this process is complete, they sign off on it. We have already had it come back to us twice for revisions, and we should be complete with it, and they should be receiving it soon. But again, just we had to bid out the fencing project on the outfall ditch because it's in a neighborhood of $13,000 to $20,000 to replace the fence. The first thing that we have to do in this project is to redig this ditch because that's where the road drainage is going to. It don't make any sense to upgrade the culverts and upgrade the road ditch when it gets to the outfall ditch. It can't get out to Conway. So you start at the low place, you work your way up. We just received bids for the fencing. Again, the low bid was $13,000, high bid was $27,000. We have to go through the process of accepting bids and writing and getting the contract together so that that bid can be accepted in that. And we cannot dig that ditch until we get this contractor on board because they got cattle and animals in that pasture. And we have to provide a fence before we can remove the old fence. So that's the process we're at right now.
Thank you, sir. We have another speaker, Ms. Pauline Williams.
Good evening. I have a couple of comments, and I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I want to comment on the fact that when our neighbor called for assistance to help her out with her child, and when I was told that, they said there was no road for them to see because of the water. I live back there. I have common sense. When you come from Highway 22 and you turn into Galaxy, if you know how wide each road normally is. You just ride in the middle. My husband took his truck. So I know if they had the fire department, the police department, if a F-150 could to ride that water, another vehicle could also. It was a shame that lady had to get her sick child, who cannot help himself, I think that was sad, for number one. The other thing I'm asking is that they said that the boat came at 6 o'clock. Thursday, the boat didn't come until after Mr. Martinez came, which was late. Me and my husband, we helped all our neighbors that we can, because it's just two of us. We knew what to do. Our land was like a lake. We have been there, I've been there 10 years, since Katrina. I know about flooding. My husband been there over 26 years. And the thing is, when we left Wednesday, we was used to the ditches being full of water. We never flooded. We left our house. We got a phone call saying our house is flooded. If it never flooded in all of those years, something had to happen. We don't know if it's something behind the man with the cattle. We was told that there is somebody that's back there that may have built a dam. That's hearsay. I don't know. Y'all should check on it, because if it was built, it shouldn't have been built. The other thing is, a lot of people back there don't have flood insurance because we wasn't a flood zone. And so we're asking that, is there any assistance that's going to be given to the people that live back in Astor Land that don't have flood insurance because it was caused by you all? It wasn't caused by natural causes. It was somebody blocked something that should have been cleaned out. So the money should be found somewhere to make sure that Astor Land do not flood again. If it haven't flooded in over 38, 40, 50 years, it's sad that it flooded that day. But the thing is, assistance, even if a helicopter could have came and got that child. That lady had just lost her husband, and you mean to tell me that y'all couldn't send a helicopter back there to pick up this child? I think that's sad, and that's the only thing I have to say. But we need to know some numbers that can help the elderly back there that don't have flood insurance, that's on fixed income. Give me the numbers. I will do all I can. I did my homework. I called 211, and I got a lot of information that I have to give to my neighbors to see if there's some type of assistance, because the people do need it back there. And thank y'all very much.
Thank you, ma'am. We have one more speaker. Is that Curlis? Thompson Larks? Yes, ma'am.
Good
I
afternoon,
didn't
and
want to say it wrong.
Pardon me?
I didn't want to say it wrong.
Oh, Corliss, yeah. Good afternoon. I am a resident of Astor Land. I've been there 16 years. And we had Katrina, Isaac, Gustav. We had water to come up to the driveway, but they did bring sandbags. And we had sandbags like at every medium. But this time, you know what time the sand came? 12:29 at night. We called, couldn't get nobody. And as far as, I don't know who this question or who can answer this, but does debris keep water from flowing? If you have debris in your ditches, does that keep the water from clearing out?
It generally does. Yes,
Pardon
ma'am.
me?
It generally does, yes. ma'am.
Okay, well, our ditches is always full of debris, branches, but you know, they do send people out there. The parish do come out there, but they sit on their tractors, they take a nap, they watch what the community is doing. Just recently, I was outside cleaning my truck. One of the parish workers, he was sitting in a median, leaning back. I was out there about an hour. He finally got out his truck. He said, you know what? You can take a fabric softener and get those bugs off your truck. It works really well. I do it on the side. I drive a Lexus GX 470. He said, I'll charge you $45 for a vehicle like that. You're on the taxpayers' money, but you're offering me advice about how to clean my truck instead of cleaning that ditch. So I agree with her. We have elderly, we have sick people. My neighbor had a newborn. He called somebody to get the baby, not him, his baby. He called the sheriff office. They told him, find somebody with a big truck. So I want to know, do we get different service because we pay the same taxes? What do we do? What are you going to do about our flooding? And all of a sudden, all these years, about 1:45, it looks like a river. We couldn't stop the water from coming. I sent out a text to my family, somebody please help me, come to Astroland. They got on a tractor and got me out. And I called Joanne Morrow with emergency preparedness, because I used to work with her. She gave me some numbers to call. So I'm like, the young lady just sat down, what are you gonna do?
Thank you, ma'am. We're gonna. Got it all
And
written
Mr.
down.
Boyley got up and spoke, that's fine and good. Mr. Boyley doesn't live in a subdivision, so he doesn't know the impact that we felt back there by living there, the residents. So all I need to know is what's gonna happen next.
Thank you, ma'am. That's all the speakers I got. Any other comments? Mr. Shake Snyder?
Yes, thank you. A lot of this basin is in my district. It is the only major district left in the parish that is gravity fed, that doesn't have pumps. Hopefully we can rectify that. It does take a lot of money. Hopefully this parish can see that that this basin can get pumping stations such as the others had in the future, but that's something we've been working on a long time, and it takes a long time, but ultimately that's what you have to do. 3 weeks ago we had 7+ inches of rain in the same area, and 7 inches of rain. I watched television the last couple of weeks, and a number of communities throughout the country, on 7 inches of rain, people are rescuing people from their homes. We handled it very well 3 weeks ago. We handled 7 inches. We didn't handle 17.99 inches in the Panama-Conway system. I'm not sure what you can build without having some problems there if we spent whatever millions amount of money. But that doesn't matter if you got water problems. It's what we can do, and so that's what we need to look at. Some of the things that was mentioned about past cleaning, yes, it's very frustrating. You have no idea how frustrating it is when you're trying to get a permit over a period of time. When you have a hurricane in your gravity-fed system, and you try to go through the process of getting a simple permit to clean the trees and stuff out of the system. When you had to go through FEMA, and we had to go through as a parish, and I say that, we had to go through and identify with people from FEMA every piece of debris that had to come out and mark it with a GPS. And as Bill said, we were trying to tag along with that. Mr. Ronnie, I'll share your frustration because I'm just telling you what happened. And after the hurricane, and we were trying to clear it all out, and we had an open invitation. We begged those people to be able to just put up our own money and clean it the way it should be cleaned. They didn't allow us to do it. They made us go through that whole process and only take out what was showing and what was green, still green. So we did that. And then we came through from that process immediately upon that time because we wasn't satisfied. And at that point in time, they started the process, it's been a couple of years now, of getting the permit to clear and grub it properly, of which we've done. It's been a couple of years we've been actively applied for the permit and trying to get it, and it got kicked back a couple of times at different agencies, and going through the coastal zone and going through all of the different things that it goes through. And we did about a $400,000 study to get the information just to get that permit. And that wasn't enough information. We had to send that back. So we're dealing with the Corps engineer, we're dealing with FEMA, we're dealing with the coastal zone, and we're dealing with a number of other groups. And so we finally got it this February. And Kim Spray started cleaning. And they doing, if you go look, and anybody that would wish to go down those bayous, I'll be glad to take them anytime. Kim Spray started, they have about 25 miles that We've contracted with them to clean so far. They've done 12 miles, and they've made a significant difference, and they are doing it the right way. Now, they're not doing dredging, but they're taking all of the debris, all of the trees, and you'd be surprised, well, some of you are not going to be surprised, but it was almost impassable. Been in boats a number of times, about 10 times, taking people out there. There was a very concerted effort to get that cleaned by this parish, and it's very, very frustrating as one of your elected officials for it to take that long, but it did. Hopefully in another 2 months or a month and a half, it'll be completed. And we're trying to get as much extra done as we can, and I think this will give impetus to be able to do some other areas. I know some of the upper reaches of the Conway, some of the other so-called minor estuaries that lead to that needs to be cleaned. Hopefully, we can tag along with this permit to be able to do all the ones that were necessary. For Ms. Lori, the canal that she was talking about, we were only allowed to shred it because of the size of the trees that are in that canal. That's the rules that we are given to go by. So we have a machine that goes in there and shreds the small stuff and cannot fool with the big stuff unless you go through another whole permitting process, which is what Bill was talking about, trying to make those areas actual canals to go through and relieve the Brittany area for that. And that's going to be a long and expensive process, but it looks like, I mean, we don't have any choice, is that we're going to try to start that process. But it's going to take, I don't know how long. So hopefully we can get that done. And far as the railroad, they can say whatever they want, but we personally talked to the railroad on many occasions, met with them in Baton Rouge, met with them in different places, just to try to get a 30-inch culvert across the railroad, and that took an act of Congress, and years and years and years to get it done. But we got to keep trying, and we are going to keep trying. But unfortunately, every time you clear one roadblock, it seems like you go into another one. We cleared a ditch along the railroad, and we come 3 months later, and there's 500 cross ties in it, owned by the railroad. And then it starts growing up. And yes, we can go up to the railroad, but we can't go past that. They will not let us own it unless they got certain situations. So it's frustrating because there's real people on the other side that are battling for their houses to get in and out of their house, and some occasions we can't do anything about it, and that's frustrating. And so we're going to keep battling it, and there's a number of things just simply for putting the berm and completing the berm around Brittany Street, getting a 3 or 4 foot berm. We thought we could do that. And we found out after Isaac, and we found out when we started investigating and look at stream flows and water flows, that it would have caused 6 to 8 extra inches in the Hodgson area and in Silverleaf and in the area on Turo and all of that area. And then the question becomes, do you want to put 6 to 8 extra inches on those people, or do you allow that water to go across and go into the Marvin Bro pump station, which it was. And it was unfortunate that that water came across for those people, because it was more than an inconvenience. It was all week. And it's horrible on those people. I live right next to the bayou, and it took until Sunday morning before the water went down in my yard. So it's not just ditches that are coming to the Panama and the Conway. It was the elevation of the Panama and Conway because of 18 inches of rain. I've never heard, I lived there 61 years, and I've never, ever heard of 18 inches of rain in the Panama Conway system. And if somebody can find the records that did that. So I'm not alibiing for it. I think there's a number of things we can do to make it better. And we need to go out there and try to do everything we can in these a bunch of small things, this culvert here and that ditch there and cleaning this and doing that to make things a little better. But if we have 18 more inches in the next year or 2 years or whatever, many of the same people are going to have some of the similar problems. So hopefully long range we can get a pumping system in the Panama Conway Basin. That's what I'm going to propose. I mean, we've been talking about it. And to let people know in the FOLET plan at the beginning, where Marvin Bro Pump Station came in Henderson Bayou, Law Ridge Levee and everything, which we spent $100 million probably, and we've seen a tremendous benefit in this parish. At that time, when that plan was set up, they didn't have very many people in the Panama Conway system. That was in the 80s. Now you have enough of a population where it's time, and it's past time. And so we need to push for the same type of pumping systems to help as much as possible alleviate the problems in that system as we have in the other ones. And we're going to push forward on that and continue to push forward. But this body right here, everybody here is working to try to make things better. And it's very, very hard to actually get some drainage things done in wetland situations and things of that sort. So, and we also working with a number of different agencies. And we need to do better, and we will. So I'd like to thank the people that were out there manning these stations, these pumping stations and everything. They left their families for a long period of time. The people that made the sandbags, the volunteers that come out and help, the people that brought the tractors and helped people in their neighborhoods. Those people, I'd like to thank all of them for coming out, and the ones that helped save people's houses by sandbagging. And then some people are bringing pumps or something, and some people we actually tried to, and we failed to save them. There was some, and that's hard to take. So that was the week, and some things you can do something about, and some things you can't, and some things we're going to keep trying to do better. So I appreciate having the time to say something.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Todd Lambert.
Yeah, I agree with Kent a little bit because I had part of his district when I took office in '96, and it is frustrating. There's a ditch that goes where Southwood subdivision is, that drains all the way through Brittany Street, all the way to Bayou Francois. We've been trying to get permits to clean this ditch out. I know I fought for 8 years when it was my district, and every councilman since has been trying to get it cleaned out. Where Miss Laurie's talking about, I know that area well. I have some family that live there, and I know exactly, you know, we haven't been able to get to that ditch and clean that ditch like it needs to, and that's on the southern end. If you don't start from the southern end and come up north, you can't get the water down, and that goes into Francois. We have pumping stations that handle Francois. So it's, you know, it is frustrating, like Kent says. And I know, Bill, you brought up on this recommendation, private development. Is that going to handle family partitions?
No.
Because we are running into some problems
No.
with family partitions with the loophole. We're getting some large developments that's doing family partitions, and we don't have any control over the drainage in a family partition.
If, Mr. Lambert, going on that, that recommendation, what we're saying is that all developments, we're talking about commercial developments, again, has to retain the water, the post-development water by 25%. In other words, but that's for developments only. You get in family partitions, the only thing that this recommendation does to family partitions has to do with the public roads. In other words, all public roads will be required to dig the ditch to a 25-year capacity, rain event capacity, and also all culverts has to be rated for a 25-year and not a 10-year, so the water drainage can get out. So as that, it will affect family partition, but only in the sense of the culverts and the ditches that drains that property. The developments itself will be held to and really it's gonna really escalate the cost of developments. But in the long run, it will save a lot of homes from being flooded and access to those homes from being flooded, specifically in curb and gutter subdivisions where the road itself is the conveyance for the floodwaters. And if it gets higher than a 10-year flood event, it's made to overflow. And when you get this kind of rain event, a 100-year event, that's why we saw so many problems with road accesses in subdivisions being blocked, because the system is not designed to handle even a 25-year, much less a 100-year. So if you go to this new design criteria, it will cost developers a little bit more money. But in the long run, it will save the residents from having blockage for access, possible flooding of the homes. And if you get into the actual lessening the amount of runoff by 25%, you're actually forcing the developments to retain 25% of the water from what was draining off of that property before it was developed. So you're not having, if this thing was done, this was our standard back 10 years ago, most of the subdivisions in the parish would have been built to a 25-year storm, and all of the retention basins within the parish would have been mandated to hold back 20% of the water. We would not have had nearly the problem in this rain event as we had right now. And again, you got to start somewhere, but I don't think things are going to get any better. And unless we go to this standard, we're not doing something to be proactive in the future. We're forcing the developments to assist us in our drainage efforts. Instead of having to go and double the size of the ditch, we're mandating that they hold back the water and and provide less drainage and less water going to that ditch, therefore not having to enlarge the ditch. So that's the purpose behind that.
And I agree with you there, Bill, but we do need to address family partitions. Not the one that you're going to give your brother a piece of property, your kid a piece of property. I'm talking about the loophole family partitions where they got 80 acres or 40 acres. A guy comes in there and splits it up into 6, 8 parts. Then he comes back at another meeting and splits it up again. And no drainage requirements are needed on that piece of property because he's going through a family partition. Something has to be addressed in the drainage on a family partition.
And that has to actually, sir, that has to come from the council to the planning commission. You know, that's something that y'all have to take action on, council members, to push that through the planning. I mean, again, that's part of y'all's responsibility.
I'd like to send that to the planning commission for them to look at and
You know,
planning department.
I'll just say that we had an ordinance
Right.
pretty much to that effect that was voted down by the body because of these type of family partitions that we were looking at. Nobody was against a family giving their son or daughter or anybody else land, but you know, with that came all these loopholes, and we tried to close the loopholes. Everybody, I mean, we got voted down on it. So we already got something drafted, so we can probably bring it right back up.
I'd bring it back.
Okay, okay.
Thank you, Todd. That's it. Yeah, Mr. Brian Melanson.
The question that I had was kind of leading up on the same thing. Mr. Rue asked us to make a recommendation to get this to the planning commission to do these things. Can we vote on that? Do we need to make a motion to add it to the agenda first? Or can we just make a motion to make that recommendation? If so, I make the motion to make the recommendation for the.
Okay. We have a motion to make the recommendations, and I'd like to word it right because we don't have the stipulations in front of us right now, so not that it's going to go anywhere real quick. Would anybody be opposed to waiting to y'all get it back in front of us?
Well, I would, if we proceed with just the recommendation
that are
conceptually, to add this, and then Mr. Compton with the planning department will actually write the new ordinance, and it will be presented to the planning commission, in fact, within a month. And that can be tweaked. Again, it's going to the planning commission, and comments can be made before it's sent to the commission.
Thanks, sir.
But
we have a motion by Mr. Brian Melanson. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Any discussion on that? Yes, Ms. Cazzo.
I just have a question about when that was brought up before. I don't think I recall that, but I
The
don't have an
family
infallible
petition.
memory, so.
It may have been before you were elected, Terry.
I'm not sure.
Before you were elected.
It's not been that
It
long
did
ago,
come
but
up.
we'll get it to you, and I'll send you the information tomorrow. I'll send all of you the information. So.
Yeah, let us know, please. Thank you, sir.
Randy, I'm sorry, Chairman. This is, what we, and I'm just trying to get this straight about what we're trying to do. We're trying to recommend that something goes to planning. I mean, it's not an agenda item.
Let
I'm trying to see what
me
to do
clear it up
properly.
for you, because I was basically, we had two discussions going. We had one discussion based on Mr. Rue's recommendations.
Right.
All right, that he put in front of us tonight, that's written down on here. All right, then we had a second conversation, discussion going that has to do with the family petitions being included with the same type of restrictions, which they do not fall under at this point. And it's my understanding, Mr. Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, your motion was to take Mr. Rue's recommendations, that's in front of us right here tonight, and move it forward. And that's what, Mr. Lambert, your second is
Including
for.
family petitions?
No, family petition is.
That's different issue. We'll bring the family petition back up,
My motion was just
the
for
information
what
back
be
in
on the
front of
report that we have
everybody.
tonight.
This is based on what Mr. Rue has presented us tonight, with the different drainage ordinances on new development. That answer your question, Mr. Shakespeare?
So we're looking right now on E, A, B, and C?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be,
Thank you,
I hadn't
sir.
had a chance to go through all of that, but that's fine.
Any further discussion on that item? That motion passes. Do we have any further discussion on Mr. Rue's drainage report? With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 7. Authorization to contract with Kim Spray South Incorporated Phase 2, snagging and clearing of Panama Canal and Bayou Conway. Mr. Rue.
Yes, sir, this is some housekeeping issue here. We came to y'all and went out for RFQs, and you accepted Kim Spray, CSSI and Kim Spray to do the project snagging and clearing. We did not know the final outcome of the cost of that project because it was dependent on Corps permitting. So we estimated I think a $1.2 million project, but that's totally estimated before the permit came in. And we also was thinking about putting that as an addendum to the contract whenever we had the permit and we determined exact costs and from Kim Spray to just add as addendum. The amount was above the 1.2 million, and Ms. Manda suggested that we actually put it into a separate contract by itself. We authorized Kim Spray to go forward with the cleaning because it was critical. But we're coming back to you now to say, please, to accept the contract in the amount not to exceed the 1.8 million, the 1.8 and change $million contract.
So move.
We have a motion by Mr. Kent Shakespeare, second by Mr. Benny Johnson. Any discussion? Any objection? That motion passes. We'll move on to agenda item number 8, bulkhead failure, Bullock Property, Severio Canal at LA 22. Mr. Shakespeare.
Yes, I mean, we discussed with Bill, that's one of the ongoing bulkheads that was there from the beginning on Denham Canal, and the expansion of the pumping station and other reasons have led to the point that we need to do something about the bulkhead. So Bill had recommended, I'm not sure exactly what, Bill, on the replacement of it on that.
You're gonna have to have a total replacement
And,
the,
but they're gonna take it under their own after that. They're gonna
Yes,
own
sir.
it after that.
Make that
So,
motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Todd Lambert,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Shake Snyder. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes. Agenda item number 9, amended cooperative endeavor agreement, site number 38-18445, Robert Denham Road, HMGP project number 163N-005-0003. Mr. Rue.
Again, this is a part of the HMGP program, and it's for the amended corporate endeavor agreement at this location.
Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Mr.
Second.
Mr. Dempsey Lambert, second by Mr. Satterley. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes. Agenda item number 11 is request to the Punch Train Levee District for project participation, Frog Bayou Bluff Swamp Restoration Project. We have a speaker on that, Mr. Frank Bonifay.
Well, first we have I think the memorandum
I
of understanding.
apologize, I skipped one. Hold up, Frank, wherever you at. Memorandum of understanding between the Punch Train, agenda item number 10, memorandum of understanding between the Punch Train Levee District and East Ascension Gravity Drainage District number 1 for project participation. Mr. Rue.
Yes, sir. In the past, we had a little bit of, I guess, unclarity, whatever the term is, on how we proceed with projects.
Lack of clarity.
Lack of clarity. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
That's good enough for me. Thank you. Again, we've been doing it in more or less informal manner over the last couple of years. And what this is an outline of exactly how we ask for or request participation from PLD. And with your approval, we're going to send it. We will send it to PLD to follow.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Todd Lambert.
Second.
Second by Ms. Terry Cazzo. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes. Now we'll move on to agenda item number 11.
Chairman, you had a speaker on that item?
On agenda item number 11, request for the Punch Train Levee District, request to the Punch Train Levee District for project participation, Frog Bayou Bluff Swamp Restoration Project. We have a speaker, Mr. Frank Bonifay. One more time, Frank.
Thank you, Mr. President Martinez, Bill Rue, Ms. Casso, Council. I unfortunately didn't know about the meeting. It was a luck of the draw that I did find out about it. And I request the plan for the proposed Punch Train restoration of Frog Bayou and the Bluff Swamp, which I own, as well as I request a meeting to discuss it.
Okay,
That's it. Thank you.
thank you. All right, Mr. Rue.
Yes, sir. This, as per the last agenda item, the memorandum of understanding, this is the first request that will be submitted to Punch Train Levee District with your approval, and it has to do with participation by PLD with that project on Bluff Swamp and Alligator and Frog Bayou. I just need approval to submit it to PLD.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Shake Snyder, second by Ms. Cazzo. And just before we slam the hammer on this one, I just want to make it clear that what we're trying to do is basically nail down what our needs are and name our projects, and the fact that we're going to go forward, and we'll ask for participation out of others as needed. So, any further discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes. Before we go on to agenda item number 12 to adjourn, I want to thank all the speakers tonight for coming forward. I want to thank the people in the community that came forward, even those that didn't speak. We know everybody's been through a lot for the past week, and some unprecedented, you know, even for folks my age that hadn't seen the type of water in different places. The work, the study, the the work to try to clear up some of this stuff is going to continue to go on. There's been a lot of work. And once more, Ms. Shakes and I did it already. I want to take this time to personally thank all the folks in the drainage departments, all the folks in the DPW, the administration folks. I know we've heard some things tonight that people put out a call and couldn't get any help for certain things. You know, I know that I'm looking at the room right now, and I see people that part of our drainage and part of our DPW, had they got that call, they would have helped. So it's, it's just sad that people made a legitimate phone call and didn't get help, but we'll work to try to clear that up. And once again, we wish y'all all well, but I want to go ahead and tell everybody, we've just started the hurricane season. We've had the bad water already. I guess the winds are next, but please, everyone, get prepared for the hurricane season. Anything you need, and I definitely want to let everybody know that we've been maintaining for years now a list of folks that need help, folks that own oxygen, folks that have special needs for themselves, for their parents, for their children. Get with OEP and get with the parish departments and make sure your name and your address is in there, where somebody knows that when a bad storm happens, that they're going to be looking down that lane. They know that there's somebody needs help down there. All right. That's all I got. Thank you very much.
Motion adjourned.
We have a motion by Mr. Todd Lambert to adjourn, second by Mr. Benny Johnson. Any discussion, any opposition?
Just fine. Don't
We are
get
adjourned.
cranked up.